A couple of hours away in the Silver State, 36 delegates up for grabs in what could be a make-or-break contest for a number of the Democratic presidential hopefuls. Welcome to America's news headquarters from Washington. As we follow this, I'm Leland Vittert. Important to note, in 2 hours, the doors close, which means the caucuses begin, and then a couple of hours after that, if all goes well, we get the results. Yeah, and we obviously hope you'll all stick with us here at Fox News. We're going to have continuing coverage of that throughout the day. It's great to be with you. I'm Jillian Turner. One lingering concern here for everybody, I think, for the candidates, for voters, for the DNC, is whether this entire operation is going to go down according to plan. People are, what could go wrong? Rightly concerned in the wake of the Iowa caucus app debacle. Mark Meredith is covering that. He is in Las Vegas with all the latest late-breaking developments. Mark.
Good afternoon, Jillian. As you are right, that's right. So many people were waiting to see what will happen here in Nevada, whether or not it'll match what we saw in Iowa just a couple of weeks ago. Important to point out, though, that it is the state party that is running today's caucuses. This is not run by the state of Nevada. So it's always interesting to see how things kind of change up state to state as these processes play out. I want to show you a live look inside one of those caucus locations, not too far away from where we are here in Las Vegas, as we are getting a better idea of what will be different in Nevada compared to what was in Iowa, because Democrats ditched the plan to use the same app developer that Iowa used for their caucus to send in those results. Instead, these precinct chairs, they're going to be using iPads that were purchased by the state party to help calculate the results. From there, those results will be tabulated, and then they're going to be called into the state party. We spoke with the senior advisor to the Democratic Party who's on the ground here in Nevada, who walked us through how the results will be fed in.
Most of it's going to be paper. So again, they're going to record everything on paper ballots. They'll then call it into a special hotline that's dedicated just for the precinct volunteers. There'll be about 200 people who will be manning that hotline. So hopefully there won't be any long waits at all for them to get through.
And once those results are calculated, we expect to get 3 different numbers today. That would be the first alignment, which is the first round of the caucus, essentially where the breakdown was, the final alignment, the second time that they've done this, and then the total number of delegates to the county conventions won by the candidates. That's the number a lot of people will be looking at because, of course, those delegates eventually get to the national stage. And that's what's so important when you're going for this Democratic nomination, is you want to make sure you have enough of those delegates when it comes time for the convention. Now, we have also seen in Nevada an amazing amount of people show up for early caucusing. 4 days, a couple days ago, they had this chance to come out and make their preference known earlier. That's something that has not been done in Nevada before. It'll be interesting, Julian, to see whether or not that was helpful for the party, as they're able to already have those results in the bag, or whether or not this is something that'll just cause more confusion and chaos. At this point, we simply don't know. But a long day ahead for the folks here on the ground. The Democrats, though, they are confident that this will be different from what we saw in Iowa just a few weeks ago. Jillian?
Yeah, I think, Mark, it was 75,000 people voted early out there. It's incredible. So we'll be tracking, how that all plays into the big picture once this caucus, gets underway. Thanks so much, Mark.
Thanks.
President Trump also made a stop of his own in Nevada, saying in a rally Friday that he's going to win the state no matter which Democrat is there in 2020 come November. David Spunt at the White House. Important to note that Hillary Clinton won Nevada by just about 2.5 points. David, what's the president's plan?
Well, President Trump hopes to win Nevada, also several states out west. He just made a swing out west. He was in Phoenix. He was in Colorado. He was also in Nevada. I think it's a safe bet, Leland. He'll probably be watching those caucus results today to see who comes in. As you know, Mike Bloomberg not officially competing there, but President Trump been talking about him lately. President Trump spent several days at the end of last week out west. And listen, that's no coincidence that he spent time in Nevada before today's Democratic caucus. In a rally in Vegas, as you mentioned, he took time to bash Democrats and tout his own agenda. Take a listen.
We are standing up for the people of Nevada. We must devote everything we have toward victory in November of 2020, November 3rd. November 3rd. Only this way can we save the America we love and drain the Washington swamp once and for all.
The president also taking aim on Twitter at the caucus system in Nevada. You just heard Mark's report. Remember that a few weeks ago did not go well in Iowa because of that app. Democrats in Nevada are saying that's not going to happen. So hopefully things will run smoothly today. And I'm talking about coincidences, not a coincidence that President Trump is making trips to Nevada. He made a trip to New Hampshire, also to Iowa, where Democrats are holding these contests. Expect to see the president travel to more of these, according to an administration official, Leland. And tomorrow, President Trump will actually head to India to meet with Prime Minister Narendra Modi for a few days before heading back to the United States. We'll see where President Trump heads as those Super Tuesday contests come into focus. Leland.
And one might think perhaps South Carolina will be on the itinerary before Saturday's primary down there. Mr. Spun, thank you very much. Jillian?
Well, Bernie Sanders has issued a warning to Russia. This following a report that U.S. officials told the senator Moscow is attempting to meddle in the Democratic primary race on his behalf. This being made public yesterday. Correspondent Lucas Tomlinson is here with the latest on this. Big news.
Big news, Jillian. First, the report said the Russians were trying to help re-elect Donald Trump in 2020. Now it's alleged Moscow wants to help Bernie Sanders. Speaking in Las Vegas ahead of the caucuses, President Trump weighed in.
We want to get along with Russia. They are sick people. The radical left's attempts to poison our democracy and overturn the last election have totally ended in a big fat failure.
The Sanders campaign appeared to confirm the news and issued the following statement, quote, "My message to Putin is clear. Stay out of American elections. And as president, I will make sure that you do it. In 2016, Russia used internet propaganda to sow division in our country, and my understanding is they are doing it again in 2020. One of the Democratic candidates hoping to defeat Bernie Sanders in Nevada says President Trump needs to publicly acknowledge Russia's attempts to meddle once again in 2020.
A lot of people see this as a patriotism check, especially those who served. What does he do when he's asked about it? He makes a joke about it to Vladimir Putin. When you think about it, hundreds of thousands of Americans have lost their lives in the battlefield standing up for democracy.
Michael Bloomberg's campaign tweeted the following. This is a no-brainer for the Russians. They either nominate the weakest candidate to take on their puppet Trump, or they elect a socialist president. Responding to President Trump, House Intel Committee Chairman Adam Schiff fired off a tweet of his own, quote, "The only thing Americans despise more than foreign actors trying to affect the vote is a president unwilling to do anything to stop it." Jillian?
Well, now it looks like whoever is president next cycle go around is going to have to deal with this situation, Democrat or Republican President Trump. Lucas, thanks so much. Leland.
Whoever loses this time around can complain about the Russians as well. Former Vice President Joe Biden is making his case to Nevada voters, hoping that the state's diverse electorate will help revive his campaign that saw some tough shellackings in both Iowa and New Hampshire. Jackie Heinrich on the ground with the former VP and his plans. Hi, Jackie.
Hey, Leland. Well, Biden's campaign has been depending on long-standing support from black voters in South Carolina to act as a firewall from his campaign after some dismal finishes in the first two voting states. In New Hampshire, he didn't even meet the threshold for delegates, but his campaign emphasized the first two states. Iowa and New Hampshire didn't look like the rest of the country demographically. He's hoping that a diverse electorate here in Nevada will produce some different results. Nearly a third of Nevada's population is Latino, and all the candidates, including Biden, are courting their support, especially after the powerful culinary union, whose members are more than 50% Latino, declined to endorse a candidate. Ahead of the caucuses, Biden made a visit to union workers, and today he will spend caucus night at another union headquarters. But if Biden doesn't perform well here in Nevada, he could test the firewall of support in South Carolina that he really needs to revive his campaign. Former Mayor Michael Bloomberg has been pitching himself as a moderate Biden alternative, and Biden was quick to shut it down.
Isn't it amazing we found out how everybody is Barack's best friend now? This is a guy who wouldn't endorse Barack, number one, when we ran the first time. This is a guy who, when we passed our signature piece of legislation, Obamacare, he said it was a disaster or disgrace. Disgrace. It was disgrace.
Biden and Bloomberg have been trading barbs and attack ads over the last couple of days after Bloomberg claimed support from former President Barack Obama, and Biden challenged it, then reminded people that Bloomberg was once a Republican. But Biden may not be the only obstacle in Bloomberg's way after he had a shaky debate performance and found himself fielding criticism from nearly all the candidates. Now, whether that's had an impact on his support is really yet to be seen. Voters here in Nevada cannot caucus for him because he entered the race so late, so his first test won't come till Super Tuesday. Leland.
All right. Speaking of Michael Bloomberg, he has spent the past couple of days revising some of his statements from that rather bad debate performance on Wednesday. Of Harvey Weinstein going into court, not of Michael Bloomberg. So we're going to see if we have the video of Michael Bloomberg and his soundbite from Wednesday night's debate. Take a listen.
We have a very few non-disclosure agreements.
How many is
Let me
there?
finish.
How many is there?
None of them accuse me of doing anything other than maybe they didn't like the joke I told. And let me just put.
Bloomberg now saying that the three women who made direct allegations against him over the past years could tell their story, saying in a statement if any of them want to be released from their non-disclosure agreement so that they can talk about those allegations, they should contact the company, meaning his company, and they'll be given a release. It's unclear if Bloomberg's reversal on NDAs will include the case involving an explosive quote cited in the Washington Post, where Bloomberg allegedly asked a plaintiff, "How's married life? You married?" Plaintiff responded that she was pregnant. The baby was due the following September. He allegedly responded to her, quote, "Kill it." Joining us now, senior national spokeswoman for the Bloomberg campaign, Sabrina Singh. Appreciate you joining us from New York, Sabrina. So it seems as though we're going to hear from this woman, if reports are true. What's the campaign's response?
Well, Leland, thanks so much for having me again and remote from New York. Look, yesterday was a welcome day. Mike made the decision to release the three women that he'd made comments against and that he had NDAs against him, to release them from their NDAs. And that is because, this was his decision. This is something that he thought about. He is an executive of a large company, I think over 20,000 employees, but he's running for president. He's running to represent all women, all people all across the country. And the Me Too movement really exposed that we have to be mindful of these accusations that are brought forward.
So the question is, hold on, but Sabrina, the issue of NDAs isn't a new one. 48 hours before he was saying, no, I'm not going to do it. If he's going to be the decisive president and leader, why not make this decision before coming out publicly and saying no? Doesn't it undermine every statement he makes going forward about what he's going to do if 48 hours later he comes out and changes his mind?
Absolutely not. I mean, this was a decision that was actually being talked about on the campaign, at the company. This was Mike's decision. It had nothing to do with what happened prior to the 48 hours ago. This was something that he decided. He wanted to take the actions to allow the women to break and be free of their NDA, to speak out. I mean, he believes that women should be able to, voice their concerns.
48 hours before, he made the same decision, except he made it on the other side of the coin, saying, no, I'm not going to let them speak out. So what changed in those 48 hours? This wasn't a new issue. This was a new decision on the same issue.
Well, again, this was something that Mike had been thinking about. Okay. This is something that, Mike has, I can only speak from my work experience and the people around me. And Mike has so many women in senior positions on his campaign that have been with him for 20 or 30 years. This was something that he wanted to do. This was the right decision. And frankly, I really respect the fact that, he recognized and took responsibility and said, this is the right decision for the campaign. And if I am president, or if I remain president of my company, we will no longer have NDAs that bound women from discussing any harassment or allegations against them.
As you rightly point out, there were some other changes in his statement that we didn't have time to get to. Today is the Nevada caucus, and while he's not really on the ballot in Nevada, not competing there, he's competing there in terms of ad dollars. These are the billboards that have gone up on the Las Vegas Strip, specifically targeting Donald Trump. Donald Trump has declared bankruptcy 6 times. It changes to Donald Trump cheats at golf, all sorts of different taglines he has up there. This is what the Las Vegas Sun had to say about this billboard that was on their front page, the main story on the day of the caucuses. It also showed an ability by the former New York mayor to turn the tables on Trump by subverting the president's ability to control messages and belittle opponents. All of Bloomberg's messages attack elements of Trump's boastful representations of himself. So should we read this as the Bloomberg campaign running a 2-part campaign? One is the primary, as you all are competing in Super Tuesday, and a parallel, we are the nominee, we're the presumptive nominee, we're running against the president?
The person we are running against is Donald Trump. And I think that while we are still going through the Democratic primary process, Mike is the only candidate in this race that has laid down roots and an entire infrastructure in the Super Tuesday states and beyond. I think we certainly are looking at Bernie Sanders as one of our top competitors in the Democratic primary, but at the end of the day, we feel confident that we will be the ones to take on Donald Trump in November. And all the billboards, what they were saying was factually accurate. And so it was like a nice way for Donald Trump to be met on the Vegas Strip.
What do you make of the polling post the debate that show your man's favorability ratings that were largely based off of bought advertising, not earned media, or certainly not being on the ground in states? His favorability is plummeting. How are you guys changing course for the next debate before South Carolina and then before Super Tuesday?
Well, just to use Mike's own words that I think he said yesterday or the day before, it wasn't maybe his best debate performance, but I think what he delivered, one of the most memorable lines of the night was that what a country to be in when a Democratic socialist can be a millionaire and own 3 homes, directly referring to Bernie Sanders. I think there's always room for improvement, but, we have to remember for a minute here that Mike hasn't been on the debate stage since 2009. I mean, we're talking about over 10 years when he was on the debate stage with one other person. He was going up against 5 other candidates, and within 30 seconds, I mean, not even a full minute had gone by, he was being attacked. So, I think we're to be expected for the next debate. We're going to expect some more attacks, but he's prepping and he's getting ready for the next one.
Well, if nothing else, those attacks perhaps show that he's in the game. Yogi Berra said if they ain't cheering or booing, you ain't in the game. But this would be the question. What other attacks on Bernie Sanders can we expect? We had the one about him being the socialist with 3 homes. We had them saying, Bloomberg saying that Sanders was the one who wrote the tax code when he was complaining about billionaires not paying high taxes. What are the next lines of attacks we can expect?
Well, I'm just trying to still recover from the Yogi Berra reference there.
Hey, you're in New York. I'm trying to go with it.
I know. I think, look, I mean, Bernie Sanders' record deserves to be scrutinized. And we're talking about someone with Michael Bloomberg who's actually gotten things done. I mean, he's delivered for the city. He took on the NRA and won. He's took on, tobacco companies and won. I think when it comes to a record of guns, reducing gun violence is something that Mike has made a priority throughout his career. And I think Bernie Sanders really has some questions to answer about his own career and the legislation that he's supported or, in fact, voted against in Congress. I think over 5 times was the Brady background bill that, put more lives in danger. I think that's something that should certainly come up on the stage next time.
All right, and with that would perhaps come up some questions about stop and frisk that we don't have time to get to right now, but we will the next time we have you back. Welcome back to the trail, Sabrina, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deadlock in Harvey Weinstein's criminal trial. The judge telling jurors to head back to the